The Dunning-Kruger effect is fascinating to me, and I'm thrilled to present it. The title page graph is the most common presentation of it, and there's a reason there's a question mark, and I'll get to that. It's a fairly common experience for a lot of us in higher ed, especially during our first year primer courses, get this sense that we know it all, and by the end we kind of find out how much we didn't know. Doing my own, well, actually, this is the actual paper that the Dunning-Kruger effect came from. So 1999, unskilled and unaware of it, how difficulties in recognizing one's own incompetence lead to inflated self-assessments by Justin Kruger and David Dunning. Probably the most interesting opening paragraph to an academic paper I have ever read. Mr. Wheeler was under the impression that rubbing one's face with lemon juice rendered it invisible to video cameras, thus the impetus to undertake this study. The paper is actually a series of four separate studies in the domains of, in three domains, humor, logical reasoning, English grammar, in order to explore these four predictions that they came up with. All four studies enlisted undergrads from Cornell, and those that participated got extra credit. So very similar across all four studies. But the humor one is particularly interesting. I want to spend a minute on it. One of the complicating factors for using humor is there's a certain subjectivity to it. Their panel of experts was 8 people, and because one of the comedians didn't match with the others, they threw his results out so that they could, determine what was funny and what wasn't. And so they threw out of their expert panel, 12% of the experts. The graph on the humor study is very different from that associated with the Dunning-Kruger effect. In fact, to some degree, to some modification, it actually reflects reality quite closely. The grammar study, again, reflecting more the humor study than that kind of a typical Dunning-Kruger effect graph that we see. In the logical reasoning study, this is where we start seeing that Dunning-Kruger effect graph that is so common. And so that is more reflective of what we have come to associate with the Dunning-Kruger. The key takeaway of the study is that people with just superficial knowledge of a subject don't have sufficient expert knowledge to understand the reasons that they might be mistaken in the first place. One of the causes that they ascribe to this uh, phenomenon is a tendency for people to overestimate their position or where they stand. I think a better way to reflect on this is a misestimation necessarily than just an overestimation, but there is these tendencies. It is the expert's ability to evaluate their level of knowledge, their understanding. Sticking with Socrates for a moment. So it's not just that someone knows something or doesn't know something. It's that do they have a good reason for saying that they know something or for saying that they don't know something? I think that is at the core of where I'm going with the epistemological crisis. This is a feature of the epistemological crisis. Whether you've got someone who is, correct on something or someone who is incorrect on something, it is very possible that these are coming into conflict, not just because there's a dispute on it, but that there's a general lack of understanding of how they arrived at their positions. And so that lack of expert knowledge and yet freedom to express it is a core of where I'm at looking at epistemological crisis.